Welcome.
Thanks, Ariel. It's good to be back.
Good to have you back. When did we last record? I didn't look. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
It's at least a year ago. I don't know, a year or 2 years ago. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy because I feel like protein, for whatever reason, has become so much more of a hot topic in the past year. Even this year alone, I feel like there's so much of an emphasis on protein, at least what I'm being fed on my social media. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I think there's definitely just the nature of like, there's fads in health, and there becomes these different trends. Then people, all the different people that are marketing their products all get on that train. The one thing I'd say though is that it's good because protein is actually something that I think legitimately a lot of people don't know enough about. They don't eat enough of. So it's like one of those things where it's great. It's great that it's become a fad because it actually really is an essential nutrient.
Yeah. So it's like a valid fad, right?
It's like a valid fad, which is an interesting thing to think too. Like more than one thing can be true at the same time. There could be some marketing fad and underneath it, there's actually kind of like not that meaningful of like content or a product, but there also could be something really good underneath it. And I think protein is one of those examples. But maybe it is too, just like in terms of like the themes of health and what becomes popular, not popular. I think the importance of muscle and why it's so important for like healthy aging has become more popular. And I think that's tied to protein because they are tied together. And maybe it has something to do with like just how much the population as a whole is aging. Like maybe that's driving the conversation.
Yeah. Well, you just turned 40, right? How is that? How is that for a man?
That's a good question, and I think it's different, thinking about my relationship with my wife and like her experience of
How
being
old is she?
She's actually older than me. She's 47.
Okay.
She just turned 47. And so I've watched her go through that experience.
Grapple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's probably honestly unique too, just like being younger than her. Like I'd honestly never dated someone older than me, and I just happened to fall in love with this woman who was 7 years older. But we were in our 20s, so the gap seemed, pretty cool. I mean, it's still cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think as a man, it is different. I think that with aging, the things that oftentimes society more traditionally like judges us on is different. And so the pressures and the things we need to like have figured out or get together, or the ways in which we can be validated by others is like different. I think it's not totally different. I think both men and women get judged on appearance, and both men and women get judged on like but I probably feel like I feel like I get judged more on like my success than my appearance.
Yeah.
At the same time, like I'm in health and wellness and I'm talking about health stuff. And so it's like, are you legit? Like Angela, like, should you really be talking about this? But I think overall, like, more in terms of my health, I'm realizing more and more how simple it can be.
That's
I think
reassuring.
Yeah, I think that going back to this fad thing, right? Like, in all of our desires, I'll just speak for myself, but I think it speaks from a lot of people. Like, you're trying to be better. You're trying to like be healthier. You want to be able to live longer. I want to like feel better about myself. I want to be able to do more things. I want to feel like I'm attractive. And in that journey, there's a lot of opportunities for people to like sell us ideas. Right? Of like, oh, this will fix it. Like, this will make you okay. This will finally make you whatever that thing is. And I think that it honestly is pretty simple though. Those things that actually help us, like it's not a bunch of toys and gadgets. It's like pretty simple stuff. But that stuff like takes dedication, it actually takes like choosing to eat the fruits and the vegetables, like that's choosing to eat the high quality proteins, not eating these things that aren't good, like choosing to go on the walk, choosing to lift weights, choosing to drink water, choosing to not drink alcohol, choosing to, it's a bunch of like really little simple choices, choosing to go to bed early, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think that as you age and, I'm 38, you're how old, 40 now?
40, yeah.
40. So I'm sure there are people older listening to this going, that's not old, but still like each decade, I think your motivation changes. And I think especially I've noticed like sliding into my 40s, closer to my 40s, like my motivation has changed. I think to your point of what you were saying before, like the scale is so different for men and women. Women, it's so heavily appearance. Men, it's so heavily success, right? But I think that you become so much more aware of your mortality, right? And there's just this mindset, it's, at least for myself, like in my 20s and even my early 30s, that like I'm going to be young forever. Like you just don't really think that far ahead in the future. And then when it starts to happen, you realize like, oh, this train is moving and like it's not slowing down. And I think the pace, at least for a woman, at which you start to age in your late 30s is maybe a little bit more rapid. And it's like a mind fuck. But I think that mortality piece becomes the main motivation of like, how can I not only live longer, but like have a really good quality of life, especially in this world where, you know, we see so many like neurodegenerative diseases at young ages, like cardiovascular diseases, all of these issues, younger and younger. You know, the quality of life piece, I think, is so important, not just quantity of life. And I think a lot of people are becoming more cognizant of that, especially around like this age.
I think that's true. I think it's both true on a cultural level that people are realizing, well, I don't want to just like live longer. I want to live well longer. I want to get to do things in my 70s, not like be in a wheelchair or a walker.
Yeah.
And naturally, I think, yeah, as you get older, and I've had that experience too, where it's maybe even just like from like a activity and like performance level, like I want to be able to like ski.
Yeah.
Or ride bikes. I really love playing basketball. Like when I come to LA, I'll like try to go play pickup basketball. Like I love doing that. And I think, how long can I do this? You know, like I want to be able to do this in my 50s, maybe even in my 60s. Like, could I hang in my 60s? That would be so cool. And what do I need to do to take care of my body to where I can actually like do those things? And I think similarly too, let's like, and I think about this when I'm aging, because maybe my perspective is a little warped being in Boulder, similar, I think, to like being in LA. Like you look around, there's like a lot of beautiful people and like healthy people. And
I'm picturing like hiking.
In Boulder, it's like so, yeah, everyone's like endurance runners and like super fit. Like, but yeah, just like thinking that is who I want to be as I age. You know, like I don't want to be just, maybe this is from a man's perspective, like I don't want to be just the guy that was able to like build this business and be successful, but I'm like 50 pounds overweight and like can't do things and look kind of like ill, you know, like I want to be like the super fit businessman, dad guy, you know, who's like out doing things.
Yeah. Vibrant,
fully experiencing life.
Yeah. So where does protein come into all of this? I've had a lot of people on the show this past year who have talked about the importance of protein, like Dr. Gabrielle Lyon. I'm sure you know her. You know, that's her whole hypothesis, right? Is that like protein and muscle, like those are your fundamentals for quality, quantity of life. What is your hypothesis essentially when it comes to protein?
I think it's aligned with Dr. Lyon. And I would say, I would offer an even broader perspective to it, that protein is literally like what defines us as like a living organism. And why I would say that is, if you compare it to the other two macronutrients, when we eat carbohydrates and fat, we use them as fuel. So if you think about like your body as a house, you might like buy electricity from the grid or have solar panels. Or if you run out, you could have a generator, you know, but you basically have to get energy into your house to run your dishwasher, to run your lights. Different from that though, you actually have what your house is like made of and what allows it to have all of its structure. Similar to that, our bodies are made up of this like physical structure. So for example, if something starts to break down in your house, like your hardwood floor starts to wear out and you need to replace it, or you don't really like your bathroom anymore and you want to remodel it, you need to replace it with new materials. And you actually need to get those materials from somewhere. That's actually how our body works. And so protein is important for our body, not just on the muscle level, but all of the things that make protein in our body. For example, all of our organs are made of proteins. The enzymes, our hormones, also our muscle, but things like our skin, our hair, our nails, all of these are made of proteins. And the way that they work in our body is similar to how it maybe works in your house, where like the tile starts to get worn out, or the hardwood floors, you have to replace it. And similarly, we need to eat protein, break it down into amino acids, have those amino acids go into our blood to help rebuild all the proteins in our body. So it's like the fundamental nutrient, not to be burned as an energy source, but the fundamental nutrient that literally helps us rebuild our bodies. So if you want to have healthier skin, if you want to have healthier muscles, if you want to be able to do any of these things in your body, have your organs function well, protein is how you get that. So it's like, it's like at the heart of what makes our whole body, work.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about amino acids, and there's essential amino acids, right? But I'm just curious if somebody is like, okay, I wake up and I eat 2 eggs and like a piece of sausage. And then at lunch, I have like chicken. And then at dinner, I have a piece of fish. Are they getting their protein needs met?
So I think it all depends on how big they are as a person, their activity levels, and their age. So what I would say is like the general kind of historical recommended daily allowance, which is the minimum, so you don't have organ failure and your hair doesn't fall out and bad things don't happen to you, would be 0.4 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 100 pounds, that'd be 40 grams of protein per day. If you weigh 150 pounds, that'd be 60 grams of protein per day. So, if you eat 2 eggs and some sausage and you only weigh 100 pounds, and then you have, the fish and you have these other things throughout the day, it's like you're actually doing pretty good. You're above that 40 grams of protein. But if you want to live more vibrantly, like I think Dr. Lyon will attest to it, she recommends something closer to like a gram of protein per pound of body weight. So you want to be more at like 100 grams of protein a day. So you're definitely getting closer, right? But if you weigh 150 pounds, the 2 eggs and the sausage is not maybe quite enough, right? And like the serving of the chicken might not be that amount. That said, if you are in any one of these conditions, if you want to lose fat, but you want to maintain your muscle, you need to consume even more protein. And we can get into why. If you have any like athletic ambitions, like you're trying to run faster or add some lean muscle or just change like your body definition and to include more definition. Or third, you're over the age of 30, which is really when the ability to digest protein and use amino acids to help rebuild all these proteins throughout your body. That means, well, at the age 30, it becomes more difficult for your body to rebuild proteins. And that's not just like your muscle, that's your skin. That's why skin starts to lose its quality at age 30. And you were describing earlier, like, God, it seems like your late 30s, like it's quite different than like late 20s. Like maybe you started to notice in your late 20s, oh, this is not like I'm 18 years old anymore. Yeah. But late 30s, it advances even more. And that's because
36, I was like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah. So it's
what is happening?
It's actually going to speed up even more.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So our ability to digest protein and our sensitivity to use the amino acids in that protein to help rebuild our skin, to rebuild our hair, to maintain lean muscle reduces. And it keeps getting worse and worse and worse the older that we get. So that means the older that we get, potentially the more protein we need to eat, or the larger portion of our diet protein needs to make up of it, or the importance of potentially supplementing with protein powders or essential amino acids or other options that are going to help you have even more. So going back to your question is the eggs, 2 eggs and a piece of sausage and some chicken with your salad, and then at lunch, and then maybe some salmon at dinner, is that enough? Well, it depends. So that means the older that we get, potentially the more protein we need to eat, or the larger portion of our diet protein needs to make up of it, or the importance of potentially supplementing with protein powders or essential amino acids or other options that are going to help you have even more. If you're like lightly active and you weigh 100 to 120 pounds and you're 24 years old, like that's probably good. If you're older than that, or you weigh more than that and you want to weigh less than that, if you are 20 years older, if you're trying to be more active, then maybe it's not enough.
Reminds me of that saying, youth is wasted on the young. It's like, why? Why? Okay. So you said that it gets harder to digest protein as we age, and yet we have to eat more protein as we age. So how does that work?
So as we age, it makes general sense if you think like historically, right? And kind of the evolution of people, like we didn't used to live past like 50. So as our bodies age, the top priority is not to maintain, like biologically, it's not like maintain the most youthful glowing skin so you look like you're 18, right? It's not to maintain this super tone physique so that you can be, athletically endowed to like go and hunt or to reproduce or whatever the reasons why our bodies might want to be more vibrant. Instead, it's like, I just survive, right? And so in that, your body's ability to actually eat protein and digest it. And when I say digest it, what I mean is The reason why we eat protein is we want the amino acids in them. The amino acids are the essential amino acids in them are the things our bodies can't make, and we need them to help rebuild all the proteins in our body. And they're also the active component. When we eat them, that's what stimulates our body to say, hey, let's take this old skin cell and actually rebuild it and make a new one. So as we get older, our ability to get the amino acids out of the protein becomes diminished. It's simply not as good at it. It makes sense, right? As we get older, we're just not as good at things. And our sensitivity to want to make that skin more youthful and glowing, to want to make the lean muscle stronger is diminished. So that's why I'm saying that's why there's an importance to actually increase the amount of essential amino acids that you get in your diet to overcome the fact that while in the past, the 2 eggs and the piece of sausage, that was fine. Now it doesn't do the same thing that it did. Like literally,
your body's not as efficient at using it.
Yeah, at 38, it doesn't do what it used to do when it was 25 with those same 2 eggs and that sausage. Yeah, it just doesn't.
And then you also said that you need to eat more if you're trying to lose weight, right?
Yeah.
Or add more muscle, lose more fat. Can you talk about that? So
this would be the basic idea is that I assume when people say they want to lose weight, that what they really mean is they want to lose fat. Like most people aren't like, I want to lose weight. And they're like looking to lose lean muscle. Yeah, right. The idea is like, hey, I want to like lose these certain pounds of fat, but I want to maintain all my lean muscle. And thus I'm going to end up looking trimmer and having more definition, right? So the unfortunate thing though is the way that it works to lose weight is to reduce calories. You eat less calories than you burn in a day. But when you reduce calories, you don't only burn fat in your body, you actually end up burning muscle as well. And this is the reason for that. So fat actually is like the energy reservoir for our body. So if you eat more food than you need, your body stores it as fat in your body so that at a later time, when you don't have enough food, you would have something to live off of. In a similar way, when you eat protein, and you do certain types of physical training, you build up muscle. And when you go through a period where you don't have protein, your heart tissue, your skin tissue, your liver, they have to keep on living and going. But the way that nature works is that all proteins are in this constant state of turnover. So literally, your heart tissue right now is breaking down into some degree. And there's little proteins breaking apart, amino acids are going into the blood, and it needs to be rebuilt. So where is it going to get the amino acids from to like rebuild that heart tissue? If I'm eating protein, then it just uses the amino acids from the protein. But if I go through a period without eating protein, what's going to happen is I actually start breaking down my muscle. So I break down my lean muscle because I can spare it to help fuel my body with amino acids to rebuild my heart, my skin, grow new hair, etc. So when you go through calorie deprivation, you cut calories to try to lose weight, what's going to happen is you're not only burning up the fat in order to survive off of, you're using the fact you don't have enough amino acids to replenish your needs to do, rebuild all these other proteins. You start burning up your muscle too. To overcome that and be in a situation in which, hey, I'm only going to lose fat, but I'm going to maintain all my lean muscle, you need to consume a lot more of essential amino acids, either via really quality protein or through a supplement. And the most recent science has shown that even just a 30% caloric deficit. So if 2,000 calories per day is what you would eat to maintain your current weight, if you cut 30%, that'd be 600 calories a day. If you did that for a week, you'd lose about a little more than a pound of fat. Well, in just that amount of reduction, you need a 300% increase in amino acids. So 3 times the amount of essential amino acids that you needed before to maintain your lean muscle, you need that much more. That's because your body just starts breaking down your muscle tissue to support your organs, but also you start utilizing any of the protein that you do eat in a less ideal way than to like rebuild proteins in your body because you're hungry, right? You actually start converting that protein into glucose. There's this thing called gluconeogenesis where you convert the amino acids into like a sugar instead. So in short, if you want to lose weight, meaning you really want to lose fat but maintain muscle, you need to make protein an even larger portion of your diet while also cutting calories, and or you could add something like essential amino acids to make up for that difference of what your body's looking for while still, while still cutting calories.
I think that's really important for people to hear because I don't personally do this anymore, but I used to like do the whole macros thing. And I know that people will sometimes log just to like check in where they're at. And if you are trying to cut, if you're trying to lose weight, it doesn't account for that, So if you're at 2,000 calories a day and then you're cutting whatever down to say 1,800, it's just going to keep you at the same ratio, right? 40, 30, 30 or 50, whatever the breakdown is of protein, carbs, and fat. And it's just going to adjust the ratio without taking that into consideration. And then people are losing muscle
You're burning
along
muscle.
with the fat. Yeah. Okay. So essential amino acids. Tell us about them.
Yeah. So when you eat protein, they're inside the protein. So if I eat, say,
are they in every kind of protein?
Yeah. So this is actually a good question. So this is kind of the debate over complete proteins versus not complete proteins. In dietary protein, I'll just take an example of like chicken. You have 20 amino acids. And 9 of them are essential and 11 of them are non-essential. The 9 essential ones are, and when I say they're in there, they're actually like tied together in a string, and that's what makes up the protein. Like they're the little building blocks. And the 9 essential ones are essential because your body can't make them. So there's like essential omega oils as well that you have to consume. They're things that our bodies can't make and we need them in order to survive. So these essential amino acids, our bodies can't make them. But on top of that, like I said earlier, they're actually the thing that they have this kind of chemical messenger component where when you consume and they go into the blood, they tell your body to rebuild proteins. So you need them for both of those reasons. And there's this debate over, complete and not complete proteins because many plant proteins don't have all of the essential amino acids in sufficient amounts to actually be considered a complete protein, like the very small trace amounts, the equivalent of none. And so, no, not all proteins do have that. So if you're looking for quality protein, you want to be either combining plant proteins, like you need to eat lentils and rice together, or where they have different compositions. The protein in lentils and the protein in rice are different. Each one is higher in different amino acids, and when you combine them together, they're complementary. Or if you eat any type of animal protein is complete. So that's not just animal meats, but that's dairy and eggs.
I will say, as the inventor of protein, I don't even remember where that started, some episode earlier this year, it is very hard, at least for me, to eat a sufficient amount of protein, I think, every day, because something that I noticed when I shifted, especially when I started eating like protein first thing in the morning, like 30 to 40 grams, which I did for like all kinds of reasons, my blood sugar, hormones, cortisol, all, everything. My appetite, like I'm satiated. When I eat, when I focus on protein at every meal, I'm satiated. I'm not that hungry. I'm not as hungry as I am if I'm, a little more carb heavy or whatever. Like it's very satisfying. And so sometimes I find it hard to kind of hit the number that I
want to eat again.
Yeah. So I think that's another reason why supplementing is so good. I think people might be listening going, well, I eat, my steak and chicken and eggs and whatever. But I know for myself, especially since I am older, I need more protein. And just for that reason alone, like it's so hard. Like it's hard to overeat anything, I think, when you're focusing on protein. And then it's also hard to like want to eat that amount of protein every day.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a real advantage. So that's one advantage, and I'll tie it to another one of something like taking a free form essential amino acid supplement. And so not just to describe what that is. So essential amino acids, as we describe them like as being part of like this protein, you can also get them just in isolation via a supplement form. And basically the way that happens is we ferment different types of sugars, and from that you're able to derive these. It's like the way that kombucha, for example, is made, or even like cheeses. Through fermentation, you can generate these essential amino acids, and then you can take just them, and they, like you're saying, you can take them in a capsule form, or you can take them as part of like a fruit flavored beverage. So it's more just like a light drink. It's not like you're eating a whole nother thing of Greek yogurt or a piece of chicken, or it's like, it's easier on your body, and you can do it really like any time of day. The other benefit is actually because not all protein is equal. And I don't want to complicate it too much earlier when you're asking like, hey, are 2 eggs and sausage, enough? But what I'm about to describe becomes all that more important as we age, and or I think probably, if you're trying to lose fat and maintain muscle. Different protein sources have different impacts on our body, and they can be worth a lot more to us. So if I eat 30 grams, well, actually just say, this is in young adults, so like in their 20s, 30 grams of protein from steak eaten on its own generates as much protein synthesis, meaning it communicates to the body to rebuild all the proteins, as does over twice that amount, 70 grams of steak if I eat it as part of a mixed meal. 30 grams of protein from steak on its own versus 70 grams of protein from steak with like broccoli and potatoes, etc., stimulates the same amount.
Why is that?
So the reason for that is because what we've uncovered in the last 20 years is that the body's ability to break down the protein, get the essential amino acids in the blood as quickly as possible and hit this kind of peak concentration. Like imagine there's a maximum amount of the essential amino acids that get into the blood all at once. That's what determines the amount of new protein synthesis. So if you don't eat it with these other foods that get mixed up in your belly, like what, and overall kind of slows down the digestion, then you're getting like less bang for the buck from overall protein synthesis. Now, when you compare that lean beef to, say, a protein powder, like a whey protein isolate, the whey protein isolate, same amount, stimulates 3 times the amount of protein synthesis as that lean protein.
Whoa.
Yeah, so basically the beef on its own was like twice as much if you eat it on its own. The protein powder is 3 times as much as the beef.
And that's even mixed with because I have whey protein in my smoothie.
Well, it's actually, that was a study of it being isolated.
Isolated.
That was of being isolated.
Damn it. I'm like, this is terrible news because all of my protein I eat in like a bowl with vegetables and the rice and sweet potato.
I think it's fine though. I mean, this is the thing. I don't want to make it to where it's like people are overthinking this, but I'm just trying to offer more tactics or ideas about like how you can think about trying to fit in the protein. Like, maybe you don't want to eat it this whole thing again, but if you had just a little bit of protein powder, it's going to actually do more than trying to eat more meat. And what I would say is, so going back to this protein powder in isolation, it has 3 times the amount as the beef.
Like mixed with water?
Yeah, like mixed with water. Yeah, mixed with water or milk. But here's what I'd say is the reason for that is because the protein powder, like a whey protein isolate, is also stripped of carbs and fats and all these things. It's called isolate because it's an isolated form of the protein. So while I don't have like a study to show this, even it mixed with like say fruit and some other type of milk in a smoothie, it's very likely going to have a much more significant impact on protein synthesis than the meat will, simply because it's already in this more isolated form, even if you're mixing with other things. Now, if you compare that to essential amino acids have 3 times the impact as the whey protein isolate.
Whoa.
And the reason for that is because, as we said earlier, the essential amino acids are actually the active component of the protein. They're the half of the protein, half of like the whey in your shake. While they're still good, is made up of amino acids that actually do nothing to stimulate new protein synthesis. Some of them get used to build new protein. Some of them actually just convert into urea or into sugars. But when you take essential amino acids, all of them get used and all of them stimulate more protein synthesis. So gram for gram, it's just like so much more potent. So when you think about that and you're in the situation of like, okay, I'm definitely above, like I would never advise someone to replace your 0.4 grams of protein that you need per pound of body weight every day.
Drink amino acids all day.
So like if you weigh, 100 pounds, like for sure eat 40 grams of protein a day, like through healthy, whole balanced meals. But if you're trying to get to those higher levels and like, I just ate, 25, 30 grams of protein for breakfast, and like, I'm just not hungry again for lunch, then like it is a potential option to like supplement with something like essential amino acids. And you can know that the impact is so much greater than if you had just actually tried to eat one more egg, right?
Yeah. And with the essential amino acids, is that also isolated, or can you mix it in your smoothie?
Yeah, you can mix it. You can mix it in smoothies. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what's interesting. If you mix essential amino acids with protein, they actually make the proteins more beneficial. So if you were to drink essential amino acids as part of a smoothie, or even just like have essential amino acids when you have a salad with some chicken at lunch, because it stimulates so much more protein synthesis, it'll actually then use the chicken more efficiently to rebuild proteins.
Wow.
Almost think about it like a little, I mean, it's not, I don't want to like be too provocative and say this, but almost think about it as like a little mini workout. Like when you work out, when you lift a weight, or you do Pilates, or you do yoga, or even you run, or stimulating new protein synthesis, you're telling your body to rebuild old proteins. When you consume essential amino acids, you are telling your body to stimulate new protein synthesis and rebuild proteins. And so when you do that alongside a meal, similar to like if you go work out and then you eat a meal, you actually use that meal more efficiently. It's the same idea. So yeah, it totally makes sense to consume along other things.
So I'm just thinking about the whole Ozempic craze right now. Ozempic, Wegovy, Mounjaro, whatever. They're all the same idea. If I have any listeners who are taking those medications, could this potentially be beneficial to them? Because, you know, I know that people, their appetites are less, they get full more easily. So I would imagine that it would be hard to hit those protein goals if you are on those medications. Obviously, this isn't medical advice, but
yeah. I mean, I would just broaden it to say anyone who is trying to lose weight and it's happening via eating less calories, which is the context of taking medications. If you take Wegovy or Ozempic, what happens is it reduces your appetite.
Yeah.
Right. So you eat less food, and it feels like magic because it's so effective for people who have struggled previously to do it. But that's really how it works. And so everything I talked about earlier in terms of you need to actually eat more protein, consume more essential amino acids when you're in weight loss. Otherwise, you're going to lose muscle, is extremely true also for even if it's, you know, that weight loss is induced through medication. And maybe even more so if it's like even kind of, you know, more radical and you're losing appetite that much more because, and I think that's why people have this experience of having pretty like, for them, awesome results initially from using these types of drugs, but then realizing, wow, actually like maybe even the muscle in my face is, I've lost it, right? Yeah. Or muscle throughout my arms, et cetera. Like these, like I wasn't trying to lose that. Well, that happened because you weren't consuming enough essential amino acids in the process. And so I think it's highly advisable for anyone who's trying to lose weight, whether through medication or not, to increase the amount of essential amino acids. And an easy way of doing it is through supplements.
So we've been talking about a lot of the benefits, but say somebody is not supplementing with essential amino acids, maybe they're not getting enough protein, maybe they're getting around enough. What can somebody expect when they do start supplementing?
So I think if you start to supplement daily, which I think that's really the key to any health thing that you want to do, right? It's like, it's not like you do it once or twice and it's like a magic result. Yeah. It's like you really start the habit of taking essential amino acids every single day. And you find whatever the best time of day for you is. If you're someone who likes to do some form of intermittent fasting and wait till you eat, or if you're someone who likes to train in a situation which you haven't eaten yet, or you kind of struggle with eating bad snacks in the middle of the day, like these are great. Let's start first thing in the morning with amino acids, or fill it in that mid-morning period or mid-afternoon period, or in addition, like, take it around exercise. I think the first thing you'll find is like, wow, kind of increased energy levels and overall improved mood during that period than what you would have normally experienced. And then longer term, it has the potential to impact the quality of your skin, your hair, your nails, your lean muscle, your overall metabolism, just, all these different parts of your body. Most common is around body composition and someone's experience of activity. So like, wow, it's crazy. Like, yeah, I lost a couple pounds, but I did a body scan and actually I lost no muscle, or I'm noticing I see more definition. Another really common thing is to say, whatever someone's exercise routine is, like, wow, I had like way more energy when I was exercising, or I was able to do one more pull-up, or, whatever the expression of their unique exercise modality is.
Can I interrupt you? Is that dependent on when you take them? Is that like, if you take it before you exercise, you're like, hey, I feel
both
more energy, or is it just the result of sustaining that muscle, building muscle, and then having more strength?
Both. So I would say like literally just the daily habit has the potential to actually have that impact in your exercise. If you also take it before or during your exercise, the potential to experience in the exercise is even greater.
Okay.
Because taking it beforehand basically maximizes it's like multiplying the effect of the exercise itself in terms of the benefits it creates. It helps you regenerate even more of the muscle fibers. It helps prevent even more of the muscle breakdown so you don't get as sore. It helps prevent the muscle fatigue so your body doesn't get as tired when you're exercising. It helps prevent what's called central fatigue, where the amino acid levels in your body change during exercise, and sometimes tryptophan can get into your blood and it makes you feel sleepy. So all of these things you could actually have the experience during the exercise if you take it right before. But regardless, I think if you just start taking it every day, the potential to have those experiences in the exercise are also likely, but it'd be magnified if you take it before.
Got it.
Find the right thing for them. And clearly I'm dedicated to the science and trying to make good things. So the product that I have, been part of and helped make, it adheres to all these things I'm about to say. If you're looking for an essential amino acid supplement and you basically want it to do all the things that we talked about today, these are the key things you need to look for. Number one, the product needs to have all 9 of the essential amino acids. So you may see some brands that advertise, aminos, and it could actually just be branch chain amino acids, which is only 3. Or some brands will use other types of really outdated science where they only include 8, but like the science says there's 9. Okay, you can't really work around it. Yeah. So you definitely want all 9 of the essential amino acids. I think another thing you really want to look for, and we can't get that much into it in this kind of conversation, but you want to ensure that the formula is not proprietary. So lots of supplement companies, and it depends on what the product is, how important this is. They'll just say, 5 grams amino acids, and it's a proprietary formula, and you won't know how many of each amino acid is in it. You really need to know exactly how much leucine, isoleucine, et cetera, is in the actual formula, because those proportions have a really big impact on actually how it functions in your body. You can't switch the amount of leucine with the amount of tryptophan. For example, like the leucine in our formula in one serving has 2,000 milligrams. That's 2 grams. And the tryptophan is like 1.5. Those are opposite sides. And it's very important that they're that different. So that's really important. And then I think, in more detail, like the specific proportions matter. So if you were looking for the right supplement, without trying to geek out on it too much, the formula that has been proven to work best in the most amount of studies, and this is for the National Institute of Health, or NASA has sponsored studies. We're talking about men and women of all different ages. There are hundreds of studies on this topic. Basically uses a model where you take the proportion of amino acids as they exist in our muscle. So if we biopsied our muscle, there'd be a certain percentage. And then you take the leucine amount, you increase it to 40%. You increase the valine and the isoleucine to maintain their proportions, and you increase the lysine. That final formula, if you looked at Kion aminos, that's the formula.
Wow.
So you want that. Whether you buy, whether if you get interested from this and you look for Kion or not, just look for that. That's the basic proportions that you want. If there's way more of some other amino acid in there, there's not a good reason for it. Or if they have additional amino acids like taurine or arginine or these non-essential ones for other athletic purposes, you don't necessarily need those. So I'd look for that. And then finally, I would just say you don't need a bunch of other stuff. So if you're getting capsules, it's just the amino acids in the capsules. If it's a flavored thing, I'd look for natural flavors, look for natural sweeteners. And then, you don't need a bunch of other ingredients. So if there's a bunch of other ingredients in it, it's not worth your time. So I can say with confidence, that's what Kion does. And we do that because we want to make a product that's actually based off what the science says, that tells people exactly what's in it. And that's really clean. So,
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, tell everybody where they can find Kion. They can find you.
Yeah, you can find more about Kion. And really, me, I've just poured myself into this. So you can go to getkion.com/blonde. Cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you, Ariel.
So good seeing you.
Yeah, it was good seeing you too.
Thank you.